welcome and thank you to you, our friends, for joining us here on this edition of Ship to Shore. Joining me today is Nhlanhla Sosibo, a Maritime Economics educator in Lawhill Maritime Centre in Simonstown School, outside of Cape Town, on your way to Cape Point. And Nhlanhla, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with us. It is a pleasure to have you join us. Thank you very much. Now, to begin our conversation, I would like for you perhaps to tell us briefly your background, where you come from, and how you got interested in the maritime industry.
Greetings to you, Lulama, and greetings to the viewers. As thank you for the warm introduction. I'm Nhlanhla. I like it when you take me back to my childhood name. Along the journey, I've evolved to use my middle name, which is Aubrey. I like it because it means a leader, by the way.
Right.
But yeah, I grew up in a township called Claremont in KZN, Durban. That's where I did my primary and secondary schooling, and then did my last FET schooling at Simonstown School, actually. And then from there, I went to CPUT. To do my ND Maritime Studies, specializing in ship navigation.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's just it in a nutshell. You know, my
yeah.
journey from the dusty streets of Claremont to basically where I am now. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, you were at Simonstown High School at some point, and now you've made around Circle 10 that you've gone back there again.
It's
now,
interesting. It's
yeah,
the
no,
best
absolutely.
thing I've ever done.
Now, you mentioned this already, that you've gone to do your ND at CPUT. Now, I want to zoom into that particular experience. Highlight your academic together with your personal growth during the time that you were at CPUT. I've read a few things, but I don't want to say them before you say them about your time at CPUT. Share with us, together with our viewers, about how it was for you at Cape Peninsula University Technology.
Listen, Lulama, to be honest, there is nothing interesting. You make it sound like I'm coming with a juicy story.
Yeah,
But I was there from 2013, I started. Then at that time you would do S1, S2, then went to C, then went back. But if there is one thing that I can say about my stay at CPUT, it was very an interesting one, a challenging one. I've learned to stretch myself out of my comfort zone, transition from high school straight to tertiary. It had a lot of its own challenges. But one thing that humbled me, and one thing that it's only now that I'm feeling comfortable to share, is the fact that when I applied in June, you need maths and physics, and you need about 50% in both. But I had a 40 in maths at that time. I struggled. I was challenged in that subject, like many youngsters are. You know, I blame that, you know, I could have worked harder, but I'm grateful that they probably looked at my other subjects that were fairly strong. They accepted me anyways. But that on its own is what actually saw that, wow, the door was opened and it was an opportunity for me to grab it with both hands and to excel. And that's what I basically tried to do. I'm grateful for my classmates. One thing, for the first time, moving from being in leadership positions in high school, getting to university. I was never elected the class captain. I hated my mates for a few days until I realized that, you know what, this is a brand new environment. And but I found myself leading a different tenor there or role, which was more academic. I made time to try and teach, and whatever work that was done during the day, I would have made to remain after school for us to go through the work, and when we get to rest. So that's where basically my teaching started, I would say.
Oh, I see. I see. Now, at the end of the time that you were at CPUT, what qualification, more concisely tell us, qualification you left with when you left?
Well, there is honestly a national diploma in maritime studies, as I said, which obviously I specialized in ship navigation. That's the qualification I got out of that. But because and for some who didn't, I specifically started with my weak math mark and went into university with a new open mind and willingness to excel. And in total, for my stay there, we did about 31 modules. And of that 31 modules, I was able to obtain 31 distinctions.
Wow.
I know you were looking forward to that story. And, I also got what they refer to as a Dean's Medal.
Sure.
But that means it's a top achiever in the entire faculty of engineering. Now that I will always say I give the tribute and thanks to my to my mates, because they are the one who would knock on my door any time of the day and night and force me to do some studying because they wanted me to teach them the work. So I was literally forced at most times to study because I knew I had people who would come looking for some help.
Sure. No. The reason why I was so interested in that particular part of the story is because we set up this platform to inspire people, to say whatever the background you've come from, you can do better, you can achieve, you can reach for the stars, literally. So now tell us, I mean, just transitioning now and moving on to a slightly different question. How then did you transition from a training to be a seafarer and navigator and to be a teacher?
Lulama, one thing that I find difficult to explaining to people is the fact that I loved my job as a seafarer.
Sure.
I mean, there are days like in all other jobs where there are lows, or kind of don't feel like, kind of angry at things. But in general, I loved my stay and my job as a navigating officer. I loved how I was myself. I love how I was able to change some of the cultures and the things and the beliefs that most seafarers had. Coming into a space, you start to do things in a new, bright way, where you bring instead of energy, laughter, and in an environment where people are all about being serious and focused, but that's a story for another day. But now coming to teaching was the easiest thing, because I believe I've always done teaching here and there. I just told you now, as at CPUT, I was basically teaching, peer teaching my mates. Taking back to high school, I remember that I did a lot of tutoring there as well, or in fact teaching after school, specifically life sciences and other modules or subjects where I was strong. I can even take it further to primary school, where we were in grade 6, and at that time, and we were allocated a child each. In grade 1, that we had to kind of nurture and teach the ABCs. But I ended up with a full class because my friends teach their kids, and I'm like, no, come, because that was happening after hours and during break. And I can even take it further to down the line to when I was in grade 1, and my home's walls were dirtied by a chalk that I used to steal from school and start teaching chairs and stones and everything. So I think teaching is what has always made me happy. And yeah, I try to do it with excellence.
Quite. Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear that, but it seems as if teaching is part of your DNA. It's not something that you got along the way, but it's been part of your personality and character.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, you are now a teacher at Simonstown High School, at Simonstown School, as I indicated earlier. How did this opportunity come about, seeing that you've made this full circle to go back to a full-time teacher? How did this opportunity come about? And secondly, what does your work actually entail?
Interesting. But firstly, I went seafaring, then went back to teaching. Then that's when I taught at a school in Sithengile Secondary. It's in Claremont as well, where I did my early high school days. I taught there for about a year, and then I worked somewhere, then back to teaching, then went back to sea. And then this opportunity came at Simonstown. Basically, the maritime maestro, the founder, the pioneer of the maritime subject, an old, respectable, honorable man who was teaching the subject here, Mr. Brian in Penn, reached a time where he needed to retire. And they obviously advertised the post. And if I may be honest with you, I was actually not ready to settle in teaching. I always thought to myself, especially when I left Sithengile, that I love teaching, but I want to do it at a later stage, one day when I'm rich with all the money we get at sea. But when the advert was out, the word was out that he's retiring and they are looking for someone, I just threw my name in the hat. And to be honest, I did all that process for, I can say, fun and experience. And when I was called in for interviews, I went in there also to get an interview experience. But unfortunately, it happened that the panel thought I'm the guy they were looking for. So yeah, they made me an offer and I accepted after having endless meetings with myself. And I eventually decided that I love money. I need all the money I can get. In fact, you can send me some after the interview. But at the end of the day, I just thought that we will forever chase money. And yeah, here I am now.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure your students, past, present, and future, are glad you threw your name in the hat, and and see what has happened. And you managed.
Well, I do hope they are glad with the firm hand. But again, one question that you asked me is what's really my job entails. It's a teaching job goes way beyond delivering a syllabus. Just today only. We started, well, now I don't know how one gets carried away, but it's always about also seeing and closing the gaps. that we see on these youngsters that are coming after us. I'm very much into motivating, empowering, nurturing, supporting, and growing people into being independent, into being visionaries, successful, but at the end of the day, not losing the important life values.
Sure.
So beyond the classroom teaching, we do a lot of mentoring. Lawhill Maritime Centre has got a boarding house where we also look out for about 57 boarders this year. And so it includes all that. Being a big brother, some end up becoming a father, even though I'm still young for that. And I tell them, rather call me, a brother than a father. But, one ends up playing all those different roles.
Quite. Behind you, you've got a banner that's written Lawhill Maritime Centre, which is where exactly we teach, as we have indicated before. If someone is watching this interview and they say, I want my child to go to the school, or I want to go to the school, or there's someone I know who would be interested in this particular opportunity, whether it's a Lawhill Maritime Centre or at any other maritime school around the country. Broadly, how can they go about grabbing that opportunity?
Okay, firstly, let me just speak specifically on Lawhill.
Okay.
Yeah, we do accept from grade 10, 10, 11, and 12, that's our program where we teach. We at the current moment are the only school that offer 3 different maritime subjects, namely Maritime Economics that I currently teach, Nautical Sciences, and Marine Sciences.
Right.
And so you apply in grade. Now you have to apply with your grade 8 reports because applications close in March, April for the Department of Education in the Western Cape. So, but if you are interested, people can always go to our website and watch out for applications, but they close more or less in March, April each year. You need to get at least a 60% in your maths, your natural science, and your English to be considered. You need to be someone who's interested in the maritime, and you need to be someone who is obviously mannered and valued. But that goes also with all other maritime schools that are there. There are over 20 schools in KZN. There is 3 or 4, maybe more in the Eastern Cape. There is one that's recently opened last year in Gauteng. So these maritime schools are increasing. And it's a pity for me, and I visited a lot of them, that this is a peculiar subject. This is a peculiar industry that does not only end in the 4 walls of the classroom. And I would say for any child that wants to do the subject, more than anything, you need what we at Lawhill call oomph. Now that's a spark, that energy, that attitude, that showing interest. Why? Because that's what the industry out there wants. If you go and want to work in the maritime industry, you need that good attitude. You need those manners that starts from a good morning, good afternoon, that come from a thank you. Those basics that you were taught. Acknowledging another person, and a gratitude, heart, and spirit, but most of all, showing interest in everything, good effort that you put in, going an extra mile. We need people of that caliber, and if we do and are able to attract people like that into the subject, those are the people that I believe can take over or can take forward the maritime industry and actually see its future being brighter each year.
Great stuff. For the benefit of those who may be watching this interview, On our comment section, we will put down the list of all the schools where, if you're interested in taking up maritime subjects, where you can apply, or to find out which one is perhaps in your vicinity. Also, what we'll have on there is Lawhill Maritime Centre's website, so that you can click onto that and be able to see what they offer in terms of the subjects, in terms of the facilities, and so forth. So please look at our comment section. You'll find all that information. Now, I want us to switch gear. South Africa is on a mission to be a maritime nation by 2030, as laid out on the national roadmap. Now, one of the components of such an objective is maritime education. Now, I want you to draw on your experience and observation. Where do you think we are in reaching this goal from an educational point of view?
Lulama, first things first, I don't want to, talk politics in this platform.
Okay.
Off air, we can. But 2030 is in 9 years' time. And I guess it also depends, what people's understanding about being a maritime nation. And it's where are we now? I know that the Department of Basic Education is trying to start as many schools as they possibly can, but how effective those schools are, that's another issue. I think educators are trying, the children are willing and doing the most, but there is very little support from the government. They know what's required. There is very less teacher development or teachers specific, attracting the right people that will partner with the schools, because I believe this, especially in the education sector, it can only be successful if the industry becomes the partners of the schools. Mm-hmm. We are not on a sausage factory machine kind of producing sausages that will, there is a market for them out there. We need a plan. That's okay. Here are maritime schools. Here are our maritime universities. I think we can somehow discuss about how many people who are graduates and who have completed their maritime diplomas and degrees and are sitting at home. And that's because I see that I find it that there is a lot of supply of people or graduates, even at high school level now, but there is very less intake or interest, or call it demand, for those people. I think there is still a lot to be done, and it's nothing new that one can discuss, from growing our registry to motivating ship owning, to it's a lot that still needs to be done. But I think where we can begin right now, it's when the maritime industry starts to partner with education. And I think that's what gives directives. I know the department has got its own requirements and guidelines, but if we really want to be a maritime nation and we are focused on that, we need the industry to partner with us so that we can know what the industry is looking for, so that we can start preparing our learners not to go sit at home after matric or after tertiary, but so that the industry can have confidence in us. They can have confidence in knowing that what we produce is what they have asked for, and it's what they can use because it's what they trust, because they've invested their partnership with the education sector.
Oh yeah, no, those are really fair points that you're raising, and they need to be adhered to. Now, I just want us to look at it, at this issue a little bit further. You touched on this during your first part of your answer. The Department of Education is investing more and more into growing, increasing the number of schools where maritime subjects are being introduced. All right, and but the reality of the situation is that some of the schools are not succeeding, are not doing so well for a number of reasons. Before you were at Simonstown, you were a teacher at another school, right? Now, from your experience, you know, I don't know if you haven't mentioned some of these challenges before, maybe you can also mention them again. You know, where are the problems? Where are the challenges with growing these schools all the time?
I think the one thing that I did mention, Lulama, is that this is a peculiar subject. And when we open up or when I introduce the subject with my grade 10s,
Sure.
I always tell them this is the most delicate and peculiar and this is just pause that. Okay, Lulama, I think we have mentioned that the department is rolling out a number of schools. It mostly comes from the being maritime economics being advertised as the subject that high school learners can pursue, and Operation Pakisa and Saimi have tried to kind of go into schools and say, hey guys, here is a subject, do you wanna do it? And then the principals then need to apply for that subject. Then the department needs to just give a go ahead and say, yes, the school can continue with teaching of offering that subject rather. But the most important thing, when I personally introduce this subject to my grade 10 learners, I always say maritime economics is the most important subject. One, because it is practical. It is a subject of the industry and what is happening in the industry. And it is the subject that many of our learners have completed within 3 years. I mean, now in this program, and without a tertiary degree, they can go straight to be employed into shipping companies, and they excel because this is not just another TIG curriculum covered kind of subject. It's very practical, it is very hands-on, and it teaches what people can go out of matric and use out there.
Sure.
I tell them that maritime subject is important because the shipping industry itself is the most important industry there is internationally, because without shipping, one half of the earth would freeze to death and the other half would starve to death. That's how much we need shipping. Okay, now it's all about taking the subject seriously.
Okay.
We will somehow discuss how one teacher gets taken from teaching arts and culture because that teacher has got only 2 classes. Now that teacher who is clueless about maritime, who has never been on a boat, who has never thought of ships in his or her life, then the teacher just giving the maritime subjects to teach because he or she is the only one available.
Yeah.
I think that is the first challenge. If the department was to approve schools for teaching the subject, that's where it should start. Or Lulama, let's say you are the one who is available with life orientation, maybe history, you are the only one who is available, but now there needs to be plans of your development as a teacher. There needs to be plans in place. They need to enroll you in to do some shipping or maritime courses. That's now creating love for the teacher, that's creating experience, that's creating ability to answer questions from the learners, and not just to be a kind of teacher who will open a textbook, page 63, read from the learners, tell them to highlight this sentence and that sentence, close the book, period, dismissed.
Quite.
Okay, and as I said, the lack of partnership between the industry and the education sector is one that is setting most schools for failure.
Okay.
I'm very fortunate in Sithengile, there was that form of partnership between the school and the industry, and it kept the school going. In Lawhill, there is definitely 100% support of the industry, and that's what has kept the place going for 25 years. We are on our 26th year now. So I think all other schools need to explore that route where they bring in the industry, they invite specialists and experts, people who know the industry and people who can guide and advise them on what needs to be done and how it should be done. But most importantly, where we are failing at the current moment is thinking this is a subject that we can give to anybody to teach, and that anybody treats it like any other subjects they were teaching. Sausage factory does not work.
Oh yeah, I mean, just to share an experience with you, not too long ago, I got a phone call from a person I know, and who's a friend, and we're sort of in the same social circles, and they said to me, "Look, I'm a maritime school teacher, and I have a challenge at this point. I don't have material, right, to be able to give to the children, right?" And now I'm mentioning this example specifically because I want to bring on another question. I want to hear your thoughts on this issue of standardization of maritime curriculum across the country, right? Because it seems from what I gather there is that somebody who is a teacher, but they have nothing to work with in terms of material, in terms of resources and textbooks and guidelines and things like that. I mean, what are your thoughts around that? Having a similar platform in terms of curriculum throughout the country for all of the maritime schools that is easily accessible to all teachers.
Lulama, that is a very interesting question. And one thing I will leave you with there is that I am personally working on that. I'm working on that issue, but currently we do have a website, Maritime, www.maritimesa.org. It's an online content material that can be used by all teachers and learners. It's a material on itself. I would say the only challenge there would be internet or data, but it is zero rated, I think, by MTN and Telecom, if I'm not mistaken. But so teachers and learners might need to find out. I think it's MTN and Telecom that have zero rated the site. Everything, every single note, there are even some examples there of activities that teachers can give in class. Lulama,
no, it's fine. We can sort of, because after the interview, I sort of edit and take out this and take out that, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were done with the answer.
Yeah, I was done with that answer and just addressing these kids that I am in a meeting. I'm sorry, but I'm in a meeting.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we're going to move on to the next question then. Okay, no, thank you for that information. That definitely will be part of the comment section where they can go and be able to get all the resources that a teacher will be able to get. Now,
but while on that, and now I'm just mentioning this for your friend who called you and asked for some things. One, I always say it is very important for teachers to actually be go-getters. I'm happy that he or she contacted you as someone in the industry. You can give practical input and even visit his or her school and have a chat with the learners, cover some, we do part of the maritime syllabus, importing and exporting, which you do. And so, you know, you can easily cover a section on that with the learners. Myself have an open door policy. They know we help out. There is a WhatsApp group where all, at least the cases and teachers are there, and all the help that's needed is provided there. But the truth of the matter is we might all have the same set of material, but how we interpret and understand that might be different from who really understands the industry and how it works and who does not, and is just teaching to tick a box.
Okay, and thank you so much for that insight. Now, the next question I want to ask you, what practical things do you think can be done to attract students or pupils to maritime schools? Because in some schools, yes, some schools are able to attract you know, vast number of students and pupils, but in some schools, the numbers are declining. What do you think practically can be done to attract more and more children to choose maritime subjects?
Lulama, I think it's, as I said, the reality of the matter now is there are no jobs in the seafaring.
Okay.
There are no jobs currently. Or rather, let's say they are scarce. It's not like before. It's not like before where, you know, it used to be almost a guarantee that once you do the subject, you will get a job. It's no longer like that. But what's important now is that more than just seafaring, there is a whole lot of other jobs in the maritime industry that people can actually talk about with the kids. At the moment, I know we always talk about seafaring, but there is also logistics, there is import and export, there is insurance, there is maritime law, there is even medicine, whoever you can land up at a cruise ship, etc. So I think educators must now start exploring these other streams so that they can let their learners know that there is more to maritime than just seafaring. In this current moment, there is even more exciting stuff like where the technology is kicking in, the drones, the robotics and everything. All of that now we're going into autonomous shipping, and it's actually it's taking place, you know. So there is a way of phrasing that more than just focusing on seafaring.
Quite. All right. No, thank you so much for that. And then another thing that I would like to get from you is that you are now part of a school that has been in operation for 26 years.
Yeah, this is our 26th year.
Right. So you've been there for a certain amount of time, right? And you've made certain observations. You know, the government, on the other hand, is setting up schools all over the country, you know. What do you think is the formula to be able to go on for so long and still, from where things are standing, be able to go on for another 26 years?
Okay, so I think the secret for actually Lawhill specifically having sustained up to this far is not much, you know. It has mostly been the industry involvement and participation. As I said earlier, that is the most important thing. That has not only helped us financially, as they've been generous to fund our program, but at the same time, it has created opportunities for our past, for our learners that leave the place and go and work for these companies. It has also their support, their mentorship, they are there for us. So I think they keep the place going as well. So industry participation is really the way to go. And the second thing is obviously ensuring that you do get the right people in, and I mean, yeah, the right teachers, the right staff, basically. And I also, if I should just mention this, it counts what the school really wants to do with that maritime subject. To be honest now, there might be a school who wants to add it as part of its subjects, then there is nothing much that school can really do. Or there is a school like the one in Gauteng that I know, it's Mohloli Maritime School of Specialization. They have changed even the name of the school. They want to be a maritime centered school, and that caused them to think differently, do things differently, invite the partnership of the private shipping industry, etc. So, and that also motivates them to take the right decision and get the right people on board. That is the key.
Right. No, that's clear. That's quite clear. Thank you so much for that
Yeah.
insight. As a teacher, as an educator, I would imagine that the lockdown has devastated your day-to-day life in proportions which are far beyond than we normal people have been disrupted. As a teacher, I mean, how has COVID-19 affected your teaching and learning experience? And perhaps share with us as well. I mean, how were those challenges overcome?
Listen, Lulama, COVID has been a nightmare for all of us. But I feel very, very sorry for my students, my learners. When it started last year, I think this year it's much better because we do have a plan of some sort. But when it first hit us, where there was no plan, there was no hope, even we did not know what will happen tomorrow. That hard lockdown was difficult. But when the Minister of Education came out and said the matrix will still write as they were supposed to write, the same papers that they were supposed to write, then it hit home. And that's where all eyes were wide open and it was frustrating. But I'm glad that, I mean, we pushed, my learners pushed so hard, and I think I would forever be grateful to those learners. We pushed over WhatsApp, where I sent them voice notes and they listened to them. I sent them activities, they wrote at home, they sent me as a picture. I used that WhatsApp marker to mark in red, sent back some feedback. You know, we tried to work hard. Zoom could not really work because of data, but WhatsApp and the voice notes, it's really worked with us for quite a while. And again, this is paying tribute. This is acknowledging and appreciating my class, especially of 2020 last year. They managed to still in the maritime economics subject get 100% pass rates with a 70% average plus 13 distinctions. I think nothing beats that in the midst of a pandemic where learners, almost half of the class on distinctions at 70% average. I think they really showed that the hard work that I put in as a teacher was not put to waste. You know, unfortunately, there was no more timetable, there was no more structured school environment, but we were all together able to make do with what we had. This year, it's particularly frustrating for especially the grade 12s who lack a bit of the grade 11 background or work rather, because last year they were mostly affected. And the grade 10s and 11s this year, you know, having to come in not every day at school, it leaves a bit of some gaps. And it obviously makes planning difficult. But what I can say is that education is the one sector that I think has risen and has tried to make do with really what we have.
Okay, I know that's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that things have somewhat gotten back to normal. I mean, we can't sit at home forever. We need to get back.
Yeah.
We need to get back to work. Children need to get back to school. And I'm glad you guys have managed to handle the situation under the circumstances so well. It's great to hear that. Now, for our viewers, at this point, we're going to introduce a new segment on our interviews. At this point, we are going to have 5 questions that we are going to ask our interviewee or our guest. And these are questions which are maritime or shipping related. And they will then have to give us the answer. As far as I'm concerned, and probably because I know the answers, these questions are, are easy. They are straightforward. They're
I'm
not difficult at
shaking.
all. But let's shoot down ahead. The first question. Well, the first question actually is, are you ready? Nhlanhla, are you there?
I don't think I will ever be ready, but let's shoot. I'm
Okay,
here.
you're frozen. Oh, okay, that's
I'm
much better now.
here.
Yes, you've come back to normal. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so the first question. What do you call the name of the line on ships that indicates the maximum loading permitted?
That is a load line.
Okay, I'll accept that. Some people may call it the Plimsoll line. It's the same thing.
Mark, yeah.
That's right. The second question. What is the life expectancy of a ship? I'll give you 3 options that you can choose from. 5 to 10 years, 10 to 15 years, and then the last option, 20 to 30 years.
I would go with 20 to 30 years.
That's right. Okay, so question number 3. Name the largest sea in the world.
Is that not the Mediterranean Sea?
No, it's not. Not the right answer.
China is the biggest country, which one of the, but South China Sea, maybe.
Well, nice second guess. Yeah, the second guess is the right one. South China Sea is the largest sea in the world. Correct. Now,
Thank you.
another one. What does ECDIS stand for in navigation?
That is ECDIS, electronic chart display information system. Yes, I got that
100%.
right.
And now the last question. What African country claims the largest number of registered ships?
That's Liberia.
Beautiful stuff. 5 out of 5. All right. So beautiful stuff. So the teacher knows his stuff. Thank you so much for that. And now on to the last question before we let you go. All right. What are your future plans? Where are you going? What are your future goals?
I think when I left the seafaring, I told myself that I now want to go into the academia route. I want to study further, of which I have started. I'm studying this year. So yeah, I'm looking into basically going to the academia route, hopefully find myself in lecturing positions in the near future. So in a nutshell, that's honestly what I would say I'm heading towards.
All right. No, it seems as if you have found your calling and you're gonna stick to it. Teaching is your thing. And
It
that's
is.
what you yeah, which is really great.
And unfortunately need to, I mean, they say you can't pour from an empty cup.
Quite,
So
yeah.
I need to constantly fill myself with knowledge so I can pass the knowledge to others. But that's really what I love doing and enjoy doing.
No, great. Nhlanhla, it was a pleasure to have spoken to you. Thank you very much for availing yourself for this interview. I really appreciate your time, and we wish you all the best.
Lulama, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to your viewers. And yeah, I enjoyed my time, and I'm glad. I was very nervous about that quiz of yours, and I know it was a deliberate test to see if I'm teaching learners right. And yeah, I am. So please keep well and have a good day further. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much. To you, our viewers and our friends, thank you for joining us again here on Ship to Shore. Thank you and goodbye.